Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. I have a special guest today. I know they're all special, but extra special guest today, and that is Hala, who is the acting executive director for MIT's Solve program, which I am eager to hear more about myself, and I know you will as well. MIT Solve, in part, is all about unlocking entrepreneurship on a global scale to really bring our potential out, and eager to hear about how they do that. So, Hala, let me just bring you forward a bit. Great. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Karen, for having us.
Yeah. So there are a lot of questions I have about Solve itself, but I thought the place to start, I heard you speak about your experiences growing up that maybe led you to this work. So I thought maybe we could start with that, and then we'll roll our way into Solve itself.
Well, thank you for asking that. Yeah, I come from Lebanon. It's the place where one inherits olive groves, but I was also born during the civil war in the country. And, I think seeing the reconstruction of the country, the society, in a place where government wasn't necessarily reliable, I think made me both want to be an agitator for change and a believer in people and communities. I think as I often kind of think back to being a 5-year-old in a shelter and, wondering how I went from that moment to being at MIT or in a room full of heads of state, like at the World Economic Forum, or, working with governments on public sector reform at the World Bank. So it just feels like so many incredible opportunities. And it really goes back to two things, I think. One is resilience of children. I think they all share that. And even now when I look at every displaced Syrian child, it's, I know that there is, if we could only put them in a place where they can build back everything they can. But the other is really just luck. So much of it was just the people I met on the way, my parents, and there's something feels very unjust about that, and I think this is some of the impetus of my, of where I am right now. For me, the ticket out was education. I went through a Jesuit education. I'm not a religious person today, but the Jesuit values of, being a human for others definitely stayed with me. And I had the chance to do that at MIT, which is incredible.
Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing that. I think in particular, you mentioned briefly your parents, but I think the attitude of the parents and people around you must have helped enormously to have maybe shored up your resilience in some ways. So this led you into working in the social impact space, I guess it's called. How would you define that? What is social impact space? What does that mean?
That's a good one. It's really feels that we're in a place where, corporations want to stop thinking about corporate social responsibility and just corporate responsibility. We want to stop thinking about impact investing and just investing, and just, acknowledging that everything we do has impact, and, that we all want to work towards the betterment of society and the world and the preservation of nature and the human race. And so, that's a very broad umbrella for social impact, but it truly, you should guide everything that we do.
Yeah, maybe being more conscious about the impacts that we're having. I think in corporations, for example, people always say, oh, we need culture. Well, you have culture, right? You want to be conscious about the culture that you have. I think we're all having a social impact. We want to be conscious about the social impact we're having. Thank you. So tell us about MIT Solve. What's the history of that organization, and what's the work that Solve is doing?
Yeah, so Solve is an initiative of Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. We were set up in 2015, so the same year as the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN.
Sure.
And our mission is to advance lasting solutions from tech entrepreneurs that are addressing the world's most pressing challenges. And it's really just about, advancing innovation that's the most pressing challenges. So we issue 4 global challenges every year to find the most promising teams. We get thousands of applicants from all over the world. And what I think we can pride ourselves the most on is the diversity of the classes that we end up selecting. And, we're facing these big, hairy challenges today. How do we create consumer goods that are reusable, recyclable, repairable? How do we design urban environments that promote healthy living? How do we prepare for and detect and respond to emerging pandemics, as we've just gone through one? And these are the types of challenges that MIT, with its ethos of practical application and entrepreneurial spirit, has aimed to tackle since its founding. And I think from now, the question is, how does MIT continue to do that in this century when the challenges are so big and there's no agent that can tackle them alone? And there's 7.6 billion of us, but the talent and potential of the very few are utilized. And Solve was created with the belief that ingenuity is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. And if we're going to solve our global problems that are so complex, we have to go looking beyond Silicon Valley and Kendall Square. We have to, find the innovators anywhere they are and then help them unlock their own potential.
Yeah, I love this. I was speaking to the CEO of Automation Anywhere a couple of weeks ago, and who's from India originally, and he said, potential is everywhere, but opportunity is not. And so I think there's just this theme today of us understanding the inequality that exists around us. So it sounds like you have teams that are set up all around the world, or people put together teams to respond to your challenges. Could you give us an example of one of those challenges and sort of the outcome from that?
Yes. And so every year we do launch global challenges across 4 areas: economic prosperity, sustainability, health, and learning. And it's always with prize funding. So this year there was around $2 million in prize funding. There's global outreach. And we have a group of experts, including MIT professors, that are helping us select those teams. And I can tell you from running over 30 global challenges that our thesis is confirmed that there are promising solutions in every corner. Yeah. And, I can think of Tao in Benin, who is treating industrial toxic waste in Africa with a recyclable fiber that they created from an invasive weed. I can think of Algramo in Chile, who created vending machines that sells the refills of staple consumer goods to consumers that may not have as much cash. So it costs from manufacturers, like their clients, Unilever and Nestle, and also the consumers. And of course, then plastic waste is dramatically reduced. I can go on. I can think of 268 of them that we selected. They're operating all over the world. Their headquarters in 90 countries. And 70% of that, that's my favorite statistic, is that almost 70% of them are actually women-led. And that just, gives you a sense of the diversity of the class.
Yeah. Well, speaking of ingenuity not being everywhere and opportunity not being equal, you're funding these teams, right, to come up with the solutions. Is that true?
So we select
Yeah.
teams that have solutions that exist, and really it can be anywhere from a prototype all the way to growth and scale. And the criteria for selection are around feasibility, sustainability, impact, human-centered design, and I'm missing one.
That gives us a sense. We're good. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's a good competition there for in the best sense of the word, for selecting then a portfolio of solutions that are addressing a challenge from various angles.
Yeah, and then you're supporting them and furthering that so that you can actually solve the problem, I guess, build the problem, as opposed to just brainstorm it. Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, I think the difference is that Solve is a community. So we think of ourselves as a marketplace where on one side, we have these innovators that we select, and on the other, we have corporations, foundations, investors, individuals that want to support them to help them scale. And that can take many formats. Funding is always, you know, a big one. Direct investment is one, and we do it also through our own Solve Innovation Future Fund. And, you know, mentorship and coaching is another. And so we follow also these teams through 5 years to make sure that, you know, the support that we're providing is helping them grow.
Yeah, terrific. Thank you. I was reading a little about Solve itself as opposed to the work that you do. And one of the things that struck me, or stood out for me, was that you have, as one of your core values, you have optimism. I've looked at a lot of core value statements over the years and helped create them for organizations, but I've never seen optimism show up. Can you talk a little bit about how that plays into the work that you do, the organization that you are?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. Thank you. I would say at MIT overall, we're tech optimists. And at Solve also, we think of optimism not as an affect, but as a process. You know, it's a goal. And that goal has that we push for a pathway. And then there's agency, you know, there's the ability to push for that goal to happen through that pathway. And so we deeply in the capacity of technology to be a source for good. But also we know that left to its own device, there's no guarantee that today's technologies will evolve in ways that serve everyone. In fact, we have, you know, enough proof of the contrary to date.
Exactly.
And then if we want to build a society with equality of opportunity and outcomes, that can't be really an afterthought. It requires being deliberate of how we innovate, how we scale, who we innovate for, who we innovate with. And that's why we're focused on finding and helping scale innovative solutions that are designed with, deployed for, and used by the most underserved communities. So that, you know, it's kind of our responsibility to make optimism happen in a way.
Yeah. So we can be optimistic about our ability to make a difference, to make things better. Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. So as you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, a lot of organizations today are looking for ways that they can become more socially responsible, right? What advice would you give to corporations who are looking to improve their responsibility effort?
You know, I think it kind of goes back to what you started the conversation with in terms of being mindful of the impact and ensuring the impact is, if not neutral, then, you know, positive. But in terms of specifically, you know, what to do about how to go about it, I would say maybe 3 or 4 points. The first one would be to give money to people doing good work, because they, you know, availability of capital remains the most binding constraint for entrepreneurs and for organizations doing good work. I would say second is do it in communities where you operate and give it to the people closest to the problem. We talk often about proximate entrepreneurship, proximate leadership, and why that's so important, and why that kind of intimate knowledge and having this being someone's lived experience really gives them a different take on a problem and how to solve it. FYI, these people may not look like you. That's actually a good thing.
Yeah.
And then the last one would be, and maybe that's a bit unorthodox, but with as few strings attached as possible, do due diligence first on the team and then just let them do their good work. And in fact, we work with dozens of foundations, particularly corporate foundations, and this is what they come to us more and more for, you know, the kind of effective disbursement of funds to the most solutions. So we're seeing that more and more, and I think both in the philanthropic world, but also in the, you know, corporate foundations realm.
Yeah, it's great. I think it's important for organizations to just choose something, right? Often it's well, we don't know where to start. The problem's too big. You can work with organizations like yours to help you choose, but pick something. And as you say, pick something that's in your community. I love it when something is chosen that your employees can support or rally around as well. Those things can tie back into the purpose of the organization. And so everybody gets the chance to contribute in a way.
That's so true. It's good for employee engagement. It's good for the brand. And then it's good for the world.
Good for the world. Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Great. So you're now the acting executive director of SOLVE. And I wanted to talk a little bit about sort of your leadership or your worldview. And as you've led, and you mentioned many of the organizations that you've been associated with earlier, I've been lately really taken with the word curiosity. And I'm curious about the role that being curious has played in your ability to continue to grow as a leader and make the impact that you have.
Oh, this is a very deep question. I think, yes, purpose, curiosity, and ability to learn probably are the good tenets to have as someone who wants to continue to grow as a leader. This is going to sound cliche, but it does go back to listening to learn, listening with,
sure.
And just with that open mind of what else could be on the other side, whether the other side is a person or something or a problem. But it is very much about having that open mind and remaining committed to being surprised, figuring out things that are new. And I think and some of it is also about the discipline that comes with it, in the sense that it doesn't, the effort to read with a different perspective or read something that is not the typical echo chamber, follow people that are not decisively agreeing with everything, with my view of social impact. So that it starts there from the source, and then what to do with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also sounds like it's, when you say have an open mind and some other remarks you made, it's being humble enough to know that you don't have all the answers.
Yes.
And you don't, right? None of us are omnipotent. And even though sometimes followers would like for the leader to have all the answers, you don't. And so staying open is really important.
Yeah.
And I love this idea of being open to different perspectives, of course.
Yeah. One way to put it is you listen deeply enough that you're changed by what you learn. And if that happens, enough times during a day or a week, then that's a good week.
Yeah, you can celebrate that. Lovely answer. Thank you. And then lastly, how you are having such an impact in the world yourself and leading others, of course, to have an impact. As you look back over your life and your career, was there a moment when you knew, hey, I'm going to be able to actually do something? I'm going to be able to have an impact? Or is that just part of who you've always been?
That's a very generous question. I think it's doing work that helps others or is in service of others, I think has always been kind of a tenet of, the why behind someone would do work. But I have to say, working at Solve just has been it's just such an incredible catalyzer. I think if we use the agitator, the orchestrator, innovator frame of like, how do you create change? I think through my career, I found myself toggling between these three. I was a very loud agitator in Lebanon, politically and culturally. And then I think through my years at the World Economic Forum, it was more about orchestrating leaders. And then Solve is just an innovator orchestrating innovators. And there's something very powerful about this that just allows us to be kind of catalyze, change. So we've catalyzed, and just to say a few numbers, we've catalyzed over 60 million in commitments for solar teams and entrepreneurs to date. Like we brokered 600 partnerships. The teams, directly affect over 160 million lives across the globe. And being able to wake up every day for them and for that is just an incredible privilege. And, I think using that privilege for, just as a catalyst is just incredible. I feel very lucky.
Yeah. Fortunate indeed. Thank you so much, Hala. I really appreciate you sharing all of that with us. If people want more information about MIT Solve, it's readily available. I don't know if you want to give more information or not, but hard to find. Are any of your events open to the public, or how can they find out more?
Yes, there's definitely always live streams. Go to solve.mit.edu, sign up for the newsletter. We're always putting out there, challenges that are open to innovators. We do a whole bunch of them throughout the year with our partners as well. It's not just the global challenges. We have a Solve Ed, which is a youth innovation challenge, so focused on youth under the age of 24. So follow us. Apply to the challenges, reach out to support the innovators. We have avenues for every single person to get engaged.
Terrific. Well, thanks again for your time with us, and best of luck to you and your team.
Karen, thank you so much for having us. This was wonderful.
Thank you. Take good care.
Bye-bye.